This is my first ever Punisher comic, and I actually don't know much about this character because I haven't seen the show either. I just know about him through Spider-Man. That's about as much my information covers. I just know about his origin and what happens there, but I don't really know who his villains are. And this was a really interesting read for me because out of everything I've been reading, this is like the one comic that I've read that's just action. Like the first issue right here sets up all you really need to know and what's really going on. And first, I also want to say this is known as a red band. And what that means is it's kind of like an R-rated comic. It's really brutal. So I'm going to try to, it's going to be hard to avoid some of the brutality of it, but I'm just giving that as a warning. But this was a really good, like, for me, it's a really good introduction to his character because, like I said, I just know his origin. And in this story, Frank just so happened to forgot who he is. So the fact that I don't know much about him right now actually kind of works in my favor towards the story because I feel like how Frank does, how he doesn't know what's going on. Like he's just kind of thrown into the story, kind of like how I was, and it's just really interesting. And we find out that he wakes up on this boat that's on fire, and then later on in the story we find out that he's actually being mind controlled by the Kingpin. We find out in this issue as the Kingpin calls into him and awakens him for some kind of like special mission. And this old lady, she like kind of helps him in the beginning, but man, do I feel bad for this old lady later on. But yeah, the issue ends showing us that the Kingpin can activate Punisher, is what it's literally called. Like it's just a button like that. And that's pretty much all the story we really need because it tells you what the problem is, and we just see how Frank tries to solve it. And I'm not sure what comic followed this one, but it's implied heavily that this is the return of the Punisher. So I'm not sure what came before this, but this was a really cool way to get introduced to his character as he's trying to figure out how to get past the mind control because he becomes aware of it. And here this was cool to see like his skills because he even talks about in the comic how he has no powers, and but yet he's probably one of the most terrifying people in the Marvel universe because they just like look how he shoots this gun and he reloads it with one hand and then he shoots it again. Like he's shooting a rifle one-handed and reloading it while he's driving. Is like that's why people are afraid of Frank because he has not only is he brutal, but he's also a tactician, which is kind of it kind of makes his brutality stick out even more, but that's just part of the plan. You like it actually is part of the plan. Like I know Frank likes to indulge in it, but he does plan for everything. Well, not everything, but he's really good at strategizing. And this guy, I actually don't know who this is. He's called Micro. Apparently he's Frank's friend. I think he possibly might have betrayed Frank, but also we get Tombstone in this comic. And as a Spider-Man fan, seeing Tombstone at this brutal was so cool actually. I kind of enjoyed seeing Tombstone in this new light because I liked seeing him go toe to toe with well, he's trying to take on the Kingpin and the Kingpin is using Frank as like a kind of like as a stick to keep him away and like also we got this shot of Spider-Man right here. He's just observing what Frank's doing. I thought he was going to show up later on, make an appearance or do something, but this is just all we get of Spider-Man. Then we get back on to the return of everything, and I think let's see, I think this is issue 4. The numbers are on the back, yeah. So it's by issue 4 where Frank finally gets the mind control out of him. So we only have like the rest of this issue and the last issue of just Frank completely of his own free will. And here's like I said, how Tombstone's in this new light that I'm seeing. I can't really show what he's doing, but Tombstone is really brutal. He tortures a lot in this comic, and he's really thorough with his torturing. I like I said, I can't really show too much of it, But I really like this right here where Frank he calls them. He calls Tombstone and he says, "I want you to listen to this." And he crushes this guy in the garbage dumpster, and then he tells Tombstone, "You're next." Like, dude, it's cool how I just really like the Punisher, and this shows how he's a tactician because he makes his big return, and the entire city is aware of it. That's what this issue is highlighting. That's why Spider-Man was observing what's going on, because everyone can just tell by the sheer destruction that the Punisher has returned. And Frank knows this. So Frank flips everything around because the Kingpin was originally going to use the Punisher to clean up the city. And now the Punisher has decided to set the cops, because now the cops are after him. So Punisher is sending the cops towards where Tombstone and Kingpin are about to have their fight. And Punisher is pretty much going to make everyone fight it out because because the Punisher is thinking he's going to solve everything in one night. And like I said, this just shows how he's a tactician because he just flipped the entire script on everyone, and he barely got back out of being mind controlled. Here's another shot of the brutality of this comic as Frank just shoots this. Oh no, my bad. I'm sorry. It's not even Frank. It's Kingpin who does it. That's how. That's how insane this comic is because it's not just Frank who's really brutal. It's like I said, Tombstone does it a lot, but it's also Kingpin. But I feel like Kingpin, you expect more to see stuff like this because this is crazy. Look how huge that hand is. And I really like how the Punisher confronts Kingpin. This is the last issue, so from here on, I'm going to be showing heavy spoilers if you all don't want to see what happens. But like I said, this comic is very action heavy. There's not much story for me to analyze too much because, like I said, I didn't read what came previously, so I can't really talk much about the events that they're talking about, but I can show off how skilled Frank Castle is and why people are afraid of him. As here he is, even driving in this truck through the gate, and as he's driving through, he's still shooting at everyone. Like he shoots Tombstone right here. And you guys, if you are not aware with Tombstone, he has incredibly thick skin, and he actually puts a wound into him. I don't know if I can look. Oh, look, here it is. You can see he's actually bleeding from the shoulder, which means Frank knows which kind of bullet rounds to use on Tombstone, which is kind of like crazy information to think that he has. But there's another moment in here I wanted to show that I really liked, and it's heavily spoilers, but I just had to show it because it makes me like Frank Castle a lot because I think he just doesn't deal with like that kind of bull when people present it to him. Because here Frank finally gets a hold of Kingpin. He finally tracks him down, and I like how Kingpin is telling Frank, he's all, "I know what you want." He's all man to man, no guns, no knives, just muscle and bone. And then he tries to tell Frank, he's all, "We both like pain." And as he's talking, Frank just lights him up, just in the middle of the speech. Like he doesn't care. Frank is done with the Kingpin, and he just leaves him there. I just really liked that moment. And here we go with a Tombstone coming back in, and then Frank shows up against Tombstone as well. But their fight is kind of like it's not really a fight. It's just him showing up with his guns, and he punches him once, I think. Hang on, let me go back to make sure. I think that's just all he does. Yeah, it's just a punch, and then he drops down, and the cop convinces Frank that she can just take him in instead, and that'll be enough. And I think Frank just leaves because he's kind of over everything, and he's also lost a lot of blood through this series. And I can't tell because, like I said, this is still my first comic, so I can't tell what Frank is thinking. But he grabbed his friend out of that chair and he took him, and this is just where that scene ends. And the story also kind of ends, but this is okay because this comic actually continues. So the story continues in this. It's just called The Punisher. It's his new solo run that's going on now. I haven't read it yet. I just been picking up the issues because I knew I wanted to read Red Band first before getting into it because Like I said, this is directly following Red Band, and Red Band does leave a lot of things in the air because we see that right here after he shoots up Kingpin that they're actually, I think they're reviving him or they're putting him back together. So I think Kingpin's coming back. We see we see Tombstone getting arrested, and then Frank walking off with his friend. And this is what I'm wondering about because I'm pretty sure his friend technically betrayed Frank in order for the Kingpin to get mind control over him because he had to tell all of his secrets. So I think the next series is going to be dealing with the fallout of that. I did want to say that this is my favorite cover though of the whole issue. Like this picture right here, this just sums up what the whole comic was like pretty much, just the Punisher caught in the middle of these two guys. And then I also want to point out that I also like this cover as well because you see the blood on him is forming the skull. I really like that. Um, and this isn't even a variant cover. This is just the basic A cover. So that's really cool for a cover that's not a variant. This is also not a variant, which is really cool. So like I said, this is a really good first story for me as the Punisher. It got me really interested into the character. And like I said, it was a good start because I didn't really know where to start with the Punisher. I just kind of grabbed this when I was in the comic shop because it's a Red Band comic and I never read a Red Band comic. I wanted to see why it's called that and I totally get it now. And this was just a really good story. Like I said, it was a lot of action, but for me who's been reading a lot of stories with a lot of character depth and character like a lot of character struggles. This one has some of that, but it's kind of light. Like I said, it's mostly action, and sometimes it's nice to read a story that's just action, where it's not that. I'm not trying to say Punisher isn't that deep at sometimes, but this story specifically, the Red Band story, is just straight up action, just straight up Punisher showing you why he's the Punisher and why people are afraid of him. And I think that's enough for it to be a good mini series run. This was a really good run. I enjoyed it. I liked seeing Kingpin a lot. My only one complaint that I had about this story is that, like I've been saying, the Kingpin was mind controlling Frank, and Frank breaks the mind control in issue 4, and we never see Kingpin's reaction to it. It's almost like Kingpin doesn't care that he breaks out. That's like my only thing that I was kind of questioning. I was really looking forward to seeing like Kingpin kind of freak out knowing that the Punisher's free again. But we never really got a scene like that. And so that would be my only complaint about this series. But honestly, that's not a big complaint. It's not like it breaks anything. It's not a plot hole either. It's just something I wanted. It's like an extra scene I just wanted to see. But overall, despite all that, I think I would still rate it like an 8 out of 10 or a B, just because it didn't do anything that made me like felt blown away or think it was an A tier. But like I said, it's a good, solid story. I would recommend it to someone who doesn't know the Punisher or even fans of the Punisher, because like I said, it shows you all the best parts of the Punisher. But anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed, and I'll see you all on the next one because I do want to read that new Punisher run. I'm just not sure how long it's going to go on. But anyways, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you all on the next one. Laters.